Hello and welcome to the Green Room podcast. I'm your host, Garon Green, and I'm so glad that you're here. And before we dive into the first episode, I want to share a brief word of caution. In the Green Room, we do not shy away from the raw truth. This episode contains deep discussions about suicide, substance use, and intense personal grief. These are my lived experiences and real life stories. Sharing them is part of the healing process, but I know they may be difficult to hear. If you are currently in a place where this content feels heavy, please take care of yourself. Pause, breathe, and come back later if you need to. You are not alone. So now let's begin. So welcome to episode 1, The Dangerous Mask, from trackside to the therapy room. My name's Garon Green and I've been a practicing counsellor for 10 years now, and I've worked at various charities and homeless sectors and addictions for nearly 16 years, and I've used my own personal experience to get me to where I am as a practicing counsellor to this day. The path wasn't easy. There's a few trials and errors and life challenges, but I kept going and built my resilience and used my tools, which I've learned, to help me get back on track. So this is me sharing my story with you, and hopefully this can resonate to something which helps you gain some confidence, gain some resilience if you are somebody in need for support and you're afraid. So from the early 1990s through to late 2000s, my life was music. It was everything. The pounding house music that shook the floors of the clubs, the piano riffs that lingered in the mind long after the track ended, and the late nights that blurred seamlessly into the early mornings. Trackside culture, that intoxicating energy of the music industry, the glamour, it all drew me in. And yet, behind the lights and the tunes, there was a darkness I could not name. Music gave me identity. It gave me belonging, a sense of meaning. And yet, in that same culture, excess was normalized. Emotional vulnerability was discouraged. Substances were woven into the very fabric of connection with others. To the outside world, my life looked exciting, even inviolable. But from deep down inside, I was slowly disappearing. And what I'd started as a social experiment and a way to feel connected to people during my teen years had grown into a coping mechanism, a necessary escape, and that escape became my own trap. Over the years, the coping mechanisms escalated. The cocaine that made me feel confident, sociable, and unstoppable eventually became essential to feel normal, to keep functioning, and I lost myself somewhere in the process. Outwardly confident, capable, and even charismatic at times, but deep down inside, emotionally absent, a hollow version of who I wanted to be. Loss came early and often in my journey, with friends, close friends, people I'd loved like family, were gone. 3 losses to heroin overdoses within my social circle, and 5 people due to suicide. Each death layered grief upon grief, each unprocessed and unspoken, chipping away at my sense of safety. My trust in the world. I could not grieve. I could not stop. I just functioned. And by the summer of 2010, I found myself in Ibiza, a paradise from the outside, sun, music, and endless distractions. Inside, I was seriously running on fumes. And then a call came in, and I heard that my close friend had died on a motorbike accident. In that instant, every suppressed grief, exhaustion, and trauma surged to the surface. I could no longer escape. I looked around me. Who are these people? What am I doing here? What is my purpose? Are these people around me really my true friends, or are they acquaintances? That took me many years to discover who I was, where I wanted to go, and who I truly wanted to be. By Christmas that year in 2010, I was at the end of myself. Sitting on a railway line, I felt the cold stones beneath me, the vibration of the train vibrating and approaching through the tracks, through my body, and even through my mind. And in that terrifying clarity, one thought pierced everything else in that moment was my parents. Their faces, their grief, the lifelong impact of my death if I went ahead with this. Somehow I snapped out of it. I threw myself onto the stones as the train passed, expecting nothing, hoping for relief. But there was none. Only rage, shame, guilt, self-loathing, embarrassment. And I always remember punching the stones with my bare hands, screaming at myself, looking up at the sky, calling myself a fucking coward for not following through. If my friends are gone, what's my purpose here? They're all gone, all my closest friends. How can I cope? How do I get through this moment? And that night marks the beginning of my withdrawal from the world. I walked away from the music scene, from friends and acquaintances, and most importantly, my own identity. I isolated. I became a ghost. And yet somewhere in that darkness, a tiny seed of possibilities remained. Between 2010 and 11, after 15 years of cocaine use, I stopped cold. My nervous system was raw, dysregulated, unmedicated, vulnerable in ways I could not fully articulate. And eventually, I reached out for help. And as a man, without making this gender specific, that step alone required enormous internal effort. I went from somebody traveling in the world and partying left, right, and centre to somebody who couldn't walk 5 minutes up the road to the shop because I was having panic attacks. I had to get back to my room, my comfort zone, because of the fear of everyone watching me. It became so overwhelming, I had to get back to my room. That was my comfort zone, my safe space. So I eventually made an appointment at my local GP's office, believing this would be the beginning of my recovery. And unfortunately, instead, when I disclosed that I was suicidal and I had an attempt to end my life, I was met with a snigger. That moment stayed with me for years. It was a reminder that not everyone is prepared to meet pain with compassion. And yet, it was also, paradoxically, a seed. It made me realize that I had to find help elsewhere. Real help. Consistent help. And not depend solely on a system that might fail me. Eventually, after the knockback, I found a local charity which were offering CBT-based therapy at the time. Didn't even really know what CBT was, cognitive behavioral therapy. And while CBT is not the answer for everyone, for myself in that fragile, chaotic state, it offered me structure, containment, and a way to externalize my thoughts. And that had long been fused with my identity. I remember driving to my very first session. I remember pulling over in my car multiple times, overwhelmed by panic attacks, nausea and shame and guilt. What am I doing here? What the hell's this person going to think of me? So eventually when I arrived, I always remember a young female opens the door and I saw this young female therapist. My internal bias and defense mechanism as a male surfaced immediately in my mind's bouncing around in there. How the fuck is she going to help me? How wrong was I? She didn't try to fix me. She didn't judge me. She simply stayed. She helped me recognize thought patterns, challenge cognitive distortions, and for the first time, treat myself with something resembling compassion. She helped save my life. I always remember that. That experience taught me something foundational. The mask of strength is one of the most dangerous lies we tell ourselves. So my journey continued from 2011 through to 2017. I started volunteering at a local drug and alcohol services, a couple of charities locally to where I was living at the time, and slowly rebuilding trust in myself and in others. Volunteering at the time gave me purpose. It gave me structure, and it allowed me to channel my lived experience into helping others who were struggling with addiction and mental health challenges. During these times, I also began my trainee counseling journey. The training process was intense, challenging at times, and brutal. Essays, reflections, role plays, exercises pushed me to confront my own patterns of thought and behavior, dismantling my old defense mechanisms while teaching me true empathy, boundaries, and the transformative power of listening. While I was learning empathy from books and writing essays through client work, my personal life continued to test me. My stepfather at the time was battling with motor neuron disease illness, and at the same time, I lost a close uncle who passed away due to cancer. I was living grief and hardship, even as I studied the skills to support others through their essays. This experience was humbling and at times very overwhelming. Yet it laid the foundation for who I would become as a counsellor and therapist to who I am today. In 2020, the world shut down with the pandemic, which we all knew globally, and at the same time, my marriage ended. Financial instability reached its peak. Isolation amplified every instability that I had and every unresolved wound. And yet, despite everything, I managed to find the tools that I had learned through therapy, not just academic, they were survival mechanisms to keep me going. So by mid-2021, I was homeless, sleeping in my car at times, sofa surfing at my mum's, and working 3 jobs in a clinical practice, my own online therapy work, and walk-talk therapy, as well as working for a local charity with people with mental health. I was always being told repeatedly that I could cope. I kept going. I applied the very same methods I use to help clients to this day. I checked in with my supervisor at the time, and I leaned on my own private therapist who helped guide me and build my resilience and confidence. I survived by doing the work. I knew one day, one step, one breath at a time. Even in the darkest months, I noticed moments of beauty. One morning, on my early hour walks, on top of the icy water, I saw 2 swans gliding across a frozen pond. And I remember asking myself at that time, out on my own in the pandemic, no friends to turn to, family members struggling, how do I get through this? And looking back in 2010 in my previous journey, I'd have been sat there blaming the world for my choices, blaming the world for abandoning me. I'd have projected so much energy on that hatred towards the world, where I wasn't going that way this time around. I had the awareness, I had the tools, and I had them to provide to help somebody like me to get through this. So my question was, okay, you're going through all this stuff. Yes, shit's happened. You have no control over that whatsoever, but you have to radically accept what you're going through. How do you work with yourself as a client if you came to you? Instantly within my mind, I hit this head on with my cognitive distortions, my automatic thoughts, with my routine, my structure, my running, my meditating. I really did go all out. I had no control over my circumstances, but I could control how I responded to them, moment by moment. And the loss continued. In 2021, I had a telephone call from a friend of mine in January 21 that a good friend and work colleague took his own life. He was an amazing outreach worker and worked within the local drug and alcohol services, pushed to his limit financially, and unfortunately, he took his own life. People don't realize how much pressure us workers can be under, working within that industry, pushing to our limits. I had another loss in late 2022, a close friend of mine who passed away. And also as well, on top of that, I lost my mum in early 2023. And unfortunately, I found my mum passed away on the floor. That hurt. And I always remember standing there collecting her cremation ashes with an empty bank account. And yet again, no support, bar from my supervisor and my own private therapist. And still, guess what? I survived. I didn't survive in the spite of the darkness. I survived because of it. Every professional which dismissed me at that time, every system that I felt failed me, every person who turned away taught me exactly who I wanted to be for others. And in that, I found my purpose. I built my therapy practice at Garon Green Therapies, and that's been running now for, oh God, nearly a decade. And I've also created this, the Green Room podcast. Not for clicks, not for sympathy, and certainly not for trends. But because I've lived it, and because I want others, other clients, other therapists, other trained professionals, and other people who've got amazing stories to tell, and anyone fighting alone, to know they do not have to carry this weight themselves. And so this is the invitation to take off the mask, to feel, to struggle, to seek help, to survive, and eventually to grow. I am Garon Green, and I am truly grateful to be here sharing this story. And I hope through this journey, you can find courage to step into your own green room and face the truth and find your own way back. If you have a story to tell or promoting something beneficial to help your business or counseling practice or anything which you run supporting others, please do get in touch. We're supposed to be in this together, not firing off at different angles. I'm here to stay with my story. I'm here to push the boundaries if I have to get that point out. There's so many people out there which need support. Even some of us professionals, more than most people know. This is the whole purpose, to create this podcast to give you the spotlight. Not me, you and your story. So if you have a story to tell and you want to be able to promote it, feel free to get in touch at garongreentherapies@gmail.com, or if not, send a message in the link below, and I look forward to hearing your story. This is Garon Green signing out from the Green Room.